Hi guys, welcome back to Christy's Book Corner. I'm your host, Christy Mason, and today is going to be two chapters because one of them is really short. Actually, both of them are really short. But today we're going to continue with Inkheart, and today's chapter is 7 and 8. So let's start with chapter 7. 7. What the Night Hides. Dustfinger was hiding behind a chestnut tree when Maggie ran past him. He saw her stop at the gate and look down the road. He heard her calling her father's name in desperate voice, her cries as faint as the chirping of a cricket in the vast black night, were lost in the darkness, and then she gave up. It was suddenly very quiet, and Dustfinger saw Maggie's slim figure standing there as if she would never move again. All her strength seemed to have forsaken her, as if the next gust of wind might blow her away. She stood there so long that Dustfinger eventually closed his eyes so as not to have to look at her. But then he heard her weeping, and his face turned hot with shame. He stood there without a sound, his back to the tree trunk, waiting for Maggie to get back to the house. But she didn't move. She still didn't move. At last, when his legs were quite numb, she turned like a marionette with some of its strings cut and went back toward the house. She was no longer crying as she passed Dustfinger, but she was wiping the tears from her eyes, and for a terrible moment he felt an urge to go to her, comfort her, and explain why he had told Capricorn everything. But Maggie had already passed him and had quickened her pace as if her strength were returning. Faster and faster she walked, until she had disappeared among the black trees. Only then did Dustfinger come out from behind the tree, put his backpack on his back, put up the two bags containing all his worldly goods, and started off toward the gate, which was still open. The night swallowed him up like a thief fox. And that is the end of chapter 7. There's our little picture of probably a tree, like a firefox, maybe. Thieving fox. It's a firefox. Oops. Alright, and the next chapter is chapter 8, and it's and it's called Alone. Eleanor was standing in the bright lit doorway of the house when Maggie came back. She had put on her coat over her night dress. The night was warm, but a cold wind was blowing from the lake. How desperate the child looked, and lost. Eleanor remembered that feeling. There was nothing worse. They've taken him away. Maggie's voice almost choked in her helpless rage. She glared angrily at Eleanor. Why did you hold me back? We could have helped him. Her fists were clenched as if she wanted to hit out blindly. Eleanor remembered that feeling too. Sometimes you want to lash out at the whole world, but it did no good, not at all. The grief remained. Don't talk such nonsense, she said bluntly. How could we have helped him? They'd just have taken you too, and how would your father have liked that? Would it have done him any good? No, so don't stand around here any longer. Come indoors. But Maggie didn't move. They're taking him to Capricorn, she whispered so softly that Eleanor could hardly make out what she was saying. Take him where? Take him where? Maggie just shook her head and wiped her sleeve over her tear-stained face. The police will be here any minute, said Eleanor. I called them on your father's cell phone. I never wanted one of those, but now I think I'd better get one after all. They simply cut my phone line." Maggie still hadn't moved. She was trembling. "There'll be a way by now anyway," she said. "Good heavens, I'm sure no harm will come to him." Eleanor wrapped her coat more closely around her. The wind was getting up. There would be rain soon, she felt sure. "How do you know?" Maggie's voice was trembling with anger. "Eleanor," heavens, thought Eleanor. "If looks could kill, I'd be pushing up the daisies. Because he went with them on his own free will," she said crossly. "You heard him too, didn't you?" Maggie bowed her head. Of course she didn't hear him. She heard him. "Yes," she whispered. "He was more worried about the book than me." Eleanor had no answer to that. Her own father had been firmly convinced that the books deserved more attention than children, and when he suddenly died she and her two sisters had barely noticed his absence. It was as if he was just sitting in the library as usual, dusting his books. But Maggie's father wasn't like that. "Nonsense. Of course he was worried about you," Eleanor said. "I don't know any father who's more besotted with his daughter than yours. You wait and see. He'll be back soon. Now do come in." She reached out her hand to Maggie. "I'll make you some hot milk and honey. Isn't that what children get when they're really miserable?" But Maggie ignored the hand. She turned suddenly and ran away as if something had suddenly occurred to her. "Here, wait a minute," muttering crossly. Eleanor slipped her feet into her garden shoes and stumbled after her. The silly girl was running around behind the house to the place where the fire eater had given his performance. But of course there was no one on the lawn now. Just the burnt-out torches still stuck in the ground. "Well, well, so Mr. Matchstick Swallower seems to be gone too," said Eleanor. "At least he's not in the house. Perhaps he followed them." The girl went up to one of the burnt-out torches and torched its charred head. "That's it. He saw what happened and followed them." She looked hopefully at Eleanor. "Of course, that's what must have happened." Eleanor really didn't try hard not to sound sarcastic. "How do you think he followed them?" she added silently in her mind. "On foot?" But instead of saying it so out loud, she put a hand on Maggie's shoulder. Heavens above, the girl was still shaking. "Come on," she said. "The police will be here soon, and there's nothing we can do just now. Your father will surely turn up again in a few days' time, and perhaps your fire-breathing friend will be with him. You'll just have to put up with me in the meantime." Maggie merely nodded and unresistingly let Eleanor lead her back to the house. "One condition, though," said Eleanor, as they reached the front door. Maggie looked at her suspiciously. Why were you on your own? Do you think you could stop looking at me as if you wanted to poison me at all the time? Could that be arranged?" A small, sad little smile stole over Maggie's face. "I should think so," she said. The two policemen whose car drew up on the gravel forecourt a little later asked a lot of questions to which neither Eleanor nor Maggie had many answers to. No, they had never seen the men before. No, they haven't stolen money and anything else of value, just a book. The two men exchanged amused glances when Eleanor said that. She immediately gave them an angry lecture on the value of rare books, but they only made things worse. When Maggie finally said they'd be sure to find her father if they tracked down a bad man called Capricorn, they looked at each other as if she had seriously claimed that Mo had been carried off by the big bad wolf. Then they drove away again, and Eleanor took Maggie to her room. The silly child had tears in her eyes once more, and Eleanor hadn't the faintest idea on how you went above comforting a girl of 12, so she just told her, "Your mother always slept in this room," which was probably the worst thing she could have said. She quickly added, "Read a story if you can't get to sleep," cleared her voice twice, and then went back through the dark, empty house to her own room. Why did it suddenly strike her as so big and so empty? In all the years she had lived alone in it had never troubled her to know that only her books awaited her behind all the doors. It was a long time since she and her sisters had played hide and seek in the many rooms. How quietly they always had to slip past the library door. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters of the windows. Window. I get that. A window. Heavens, I won't be able to sleep a wink, thought Eleanor, and then she thought of the book waiting beside her bed, and with a mixture of anticipation and very guilty conscience, she disappeared into her bedroom. And there's our little picture of, looks like a dragon. There's no dragon. I don't know what the hell that is. Stay tuned for tomorrow for chapter 9 and 10. This is 7 and 8. Tomorrow will be 9 and 10. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, comment, and like. And I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to dare to dream, guys.